Which necklace do you think is more appropriate for this video? I have a key and I have a pentagram. Which one do you think is more appropriate? Brenda does not care. She's gonna wander off and probably come back. They're both too long for you to even see them in the video anyway. Another slightly day early chapter going up. So, okay. We don't really get a whole lot of, I wouldn't say we get like a whole lot of lore in and of itself dropped in this chapter. We get a little bit. We get some stuff about Ripley's husband, who will be unnamed at the moment for purposes. Ripley's husband, Colin's father. She didn't like that answer, I guess. Yeah. So, we have chapter 11,000, or 1100, I keep saying 11,000, 1,139, titled Mountain Eater. So, first we have the chapter cover, and we have Who's Who, and it's the katana that was stolen from Yamato. It's Yasuie's katana that they have. And we see that he is drawing it, and it is 2 rebels apprehended. And we see on the floor in front of him 2 silhouettes with horns. And it looks like he's going to be ready to execute them. They're ulti in page 1. They're clearly supposed to be ulti in page 1, so we know at least they're not dead, or at least not yet. Assumedly what'll happen next chapter is Yamato will what'll happen fairly soon in this is Yamato will burst in and save them, and then maybe something will happen. I don't know. Ulti might be fine with working for the Kozukis. I have no idea. He might be like, yeah, sure, I'll go work for Momonosuke. Just please don't kill me. Ulti, on the other hand, I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. I have no idea how they feel about that. Find out how they feel about the fact that Kaido lost. But we'll see what happens there. Into the chapter. We don't see any of Shamrock in this chapter. We don't see any of the other Gods Knights. We don't see Loki in this chapter. We spend the majority of this chapter at the castle, at the quest or onst or whatever it is, castle, is what we do for the majority of this chapter. We go down to the village a little bit, and we get like a slight hint of a flashback. But technically no new characters are introduced in this chapter. But we'll see. So it starts off with Zoro, and he's like, at this rate, we'll still be looking after sundown. Just how big is this castle? And Rhodes like, those guards were no help either, honestly. The only ones who probably know where to find what we're looking for are a few of the Greybeards, like Elder Jarl. So obviously they're looking for the key at the moment. They're looking for the key at the moment. And they're searching all over the castle trying to find it, because Luffy, of course, wants to try to free Loki because he has a one-track mind. And Road would really have no reason to know where the key is at this point in time. He probably was not involved at all in the fight against Loki. Hyrudine was. Hyrudine may know where the key is. But not exactly sure. Although, given the information that we learned about, now we know why Loki is a prince, and Hyrudine is not considered a prince, because, birth status and stuff like that. So Luffy is just like, oh, Sword Gramps? I wonder if he'd tell me if I asked. And I think it's either Road or I think it's Zoro. No, I think it's Road that says there's no way he would. Just trying to free Loki is a heinous crime. It was like, yeah, let's ask the people who worked really hard to tie Loki up to the tree. Hey, where's the key? Why? I want to release him. Okay, Luffy, we're going to explain to you again why this is a bad idea. Are you listening? Yes. Did you understand any of that? No. Where's the key? And Zoro's like, we haven't decided if we're going to let him go yet. And Luffy is just walking around. He's like, you're no fun, Zoro. And Nami's like, hey, over here. And they come over. And we go into this other little part of the castle. Everything in the castle, of course, in ruins, as we have seen. Not only was there the giant fight that took place here involving Loki and King Harald, there was probably also just like, you know, years of the castle being in disrepair at this point in time. It's pretty good, you know, 12, 13 years ago. Or was it 14? I think was it 14 years ago? Something like that. That everything happened. With Loki killing Jarl, or killing Harald and everything. So it's like, we'll see. From there, they go into what Rhodes said. He's like, a red carpet, the mark of royalty. Could that be the throne room? And they go inside, and it is the destroyed throne room that we saw earlier, kind of earlier, when Figureland and Gunko showed up. And we go inside. And yeah, we see that there is still very clearly the giant summoning circle there. It hasn't gone anywhere. And Rhodes like walking in, he's like, pardon the intro. Wow. I was like, he's probably never seen this place. It's like, one of the three, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, I don't know. It's just like, it's all smashed up. And they're like, this rubber looks more recent. It's like, there's a hole in the ceiling. Yeah, that'll do it. And it's just like, Rhodes like, this is the throne room, all right. But I must say, what is the meaning of this mark? They're like, a mark? Where? It's just like, what do you mean a mark where? It's in the middle of the freaking floor. And to be fair, they don't have the best vantage point of it. But Rhodes picks the three of them up, and Luffy's like, oh, I see it now. And Nami's like, I've seen these in books before. It looks like a magic circle. You're not wrong, Nami. You are not wrong. And we get a better view of the circle. And Nami's explaining it's just like, they apparently use them in rituals to summon demons in some countries. Well, you know, Brooke technically did fulfill the wish of people who were trying to summon a demon way back when you guys got separated 2 years ago. So that's a possibility there. And one of them is just like, how does that even work? And Nami's like, beats me. And Rhodes just like terrified. He's like, what's this thing doing in the throne room? I must say, it's creepy. I was like, I agree with you there, Rhodes. That is creepy that there's a giant satanic star circle thing in the middle of the throne room that no one is supposed to have been in for a long time. And Luffy's like, I feel like I saw something like this recently. I was like, yes, a couple of days ago, a week ago at the most, when you were on Egghead fighting against the 5 elders. To be fair, Luffy was a bit more preoccupied with some stuff when all the elders, all the Gorosei teleported in. So he has a bit of a reason as to why maybe he didn't quite catch that there were giant, you know, pentagrams and stuff like that or whatever all over the ground. Spell circles all over the ground. And then we hear a voice shout, Straw Hat Luffy, and they're like, what? And Rhodes is just like, who's there? Is it a demon? And Nami's like, no way, who said that? And Rhodes just like, I must say, it couldn't be a vengeful spirit, could it? And the voice continues, just like, I've been waiting to meet you. And they're like, stay calm, stay calm. Rhodes keeps saying over and over again, stay calm, stay calm. And he's just terrified, and he's like actually kind of kneeling down because the voice is coming from over by the throne. And it's not Rhodes, it's like Luffy or Zoro. It's just like, a demon was summoned to the castle really is cursed. The castle really is cursed, and it's just like, let's get out of here before we're possessed. And that's Rhodes just like, oh god, no, get me out of here. That would be my answer too. And Luffy's like, wait, don't run, Rhodo. And then we hear, wait, and then there's just like giant axe comes flying at them right past Rhodes. Rhodes jumps and tosses all of them into the air. They're all falling. Luffy manages to grab Nami, And he grabs her and then he plops her into Zoro's arms so she's safe. And she's like, thanks. And Luffy's like, hey. It's like, there's someone on the throne. I must say, I'm terribly sorry, Namitaso. And that's just Rhoda. Like, I'm terribly sorry, Namitaso. He's just terrified if she's going to be. She's like, you're dead. I was like, yeah, you dropped her. You are dead. And they look over at the throne, and sitting on like just on the arm of the throne is just like this little guy, little human. Well, he's normal sized human in all honesty. And he's like, oh. It's like, and Rhodes the one that was like, Sir Ya, what are you doing here? And we get the intro box. Human resident of Elbeth, ex-pirate Ya-san. And just to stick with the dramatics of the chapter, he is the person that we saw in the cover page story from the Decks of the World after the time skip, where we saw drinking with Crocus, with the Casa hat and the striped cape kimono type thing. He's got on a Hawaiian shirt and shorts. He's old. He's got white hair. Part of it's in a, it's like a big bushy beard, and part of it's in a braid. He's got some scars on his face and a tattoo, I think on the right side as well, but I can't quite tell what it is. And he's just like, I felt a strange surge of hockey coming from here earlier. Looks like I missed whatever made it, but I'm glad I found you all instead. And he's just like, I've heard the rumors about you, Straw Hat Luffy. They say you defeated Kaido. It's been ages since I've been to Wano. I'd love to go again. I'm just going to stick with the dramatics of this. Yes, if you've read the chapter while you're watching this, if you haven't read the chapter, I have no idea. But yeah. It's Scott or Gabon. Yeah. That was one of the two main possibilities for who Colin's father, Ripley's husband, was going to be, for who the guy on the cover was going to be. It's like Shiki or Scopper. One of the two are the two highest likelihoods. It's Scopper, kind of third strongest part of the monster trio of the Roger pirates and everything. One of the other best friends of Rayleigh and Roger and everything. One of the other surviving members. And he's like, I haven't been to Wano in ages. So I was like, technically the last time you were in Wano, I don't think you really got off the ship, or at least you probably didn't venture too far past Curry. When Odin was there dropping Toki off and then running to the flower capital to get what he needed from the poneglyph and then coming back. I don't know how much you spent time in Wano in that regard, but he probably would have heard so much about it from Odin. So there's that. And they're like, Sir Ya, is what Luffy's saying. And Road is like, he gets to do more explanation. He's like, most people on Elbeth call him Ya-san. Didn't you meet Miss Ripley? Hi, Jingly. Are you being jingly? Are you being jingly in the middle of my explanation? I can be jingly whenever I want, Mommy. I'm a baby. Yes, you are a baby. You're a very good girl. You're my good girl. I love you so much. Yes, I know. I was gone for several hours. I had 2 job interviews this morning. So good girl. But I have to go back to this. I know you don't. Yes, I do. I'll snuggle you when I'm done. And you got lots of snuggles this morning already. So Rhode's like, didn't you meet Miss Ripley when you went to the school? He's her partner. So and Luffy's like, oh, he's the dad of that big pipsqueak. And Scopper just starts laughing. He's like, big pipsqueak. Well, you ain't wrong. And he's just like, so you've already met Colin and Ripley. The boy's giant blood runs strong. He's always been too big for me to hold. That's kind of a sad thing. I mean, that is kind of a sad thing in that regard, with like, that's the other like terrifying thing of like a female human and a male giant having a child. It's just like, that does not click well. But like a male human and a female giant having a child is a bit more feasible. And in this regard, it's, Colin, even as a baby, was already far too big for like Scopper to ever be able to hold, which is kind of like a sad thing if you think about it. That's a very sad dynamic, that it's like he can't even really like properly hold his own child. Doesn't mean he loves Colin any less because of it, because he clearly does love Colin and everything, and like Ripley and everything. But we get that. And he's like, can you believe he's 20? And Ripley is 80 years old. She's even older than I am. Okay, so we're going to talk about ages here for a second. Okay, so I did look it up for a couple of reference points for some of the ages. So we now have ages for Colin, who is 20 years old. He's 20 years old, and I don't know, maybe half giant children age slightly slower than half human giants age slightly slower than regular giants. I don't know, because like when we see Big Mom's flashback, Gerd is like 10, and she seems maybe about the right age at 10, and then Hyrudine is like 18 when during the flashback for Big Mom. He's like 18, and he looks like he's a bit younger than he would be at 18, because like Luffy's 19, and like he's 17 at the beginning of the story, and Hyrudine even looks younger than like Luffy would have been back then, been at at 17. So I guess there's that coming into fruition, but I just giants, for how they age, is just still kind of a bit of a full mystery. But like, I looked up some numbers here. So we know that Roger was born 77 years ago. He was 53 when he died, but he was born 77 years ago. Rayleigh is 78. We never have gotten an age on Scopper, or at least not yet. None of that was ever shown in a Viva card or said by Oda or anything like that. I even double checked. There's an unknown age on Scopper. But given the fact that he says that Ripley is older than him, and she's 80, she's just 1 year younger than Hyrudine, because he's 81. And it's a couple of years older than Gerd, because Gerd is 73. And so it's like, okay, how old is Scopper? And he seemed to be not a whole lot younger than Roger and Rayleigh back during their travels, 24 years ago, 25-ish years ago. He doesn't seem like he's that much younger than them while they're on their travels, so maybe there's something with that. Maybe he's like 10 years younger than them, so like, Rayleigh is like 78, so maybe Scopper is more like 68 or something like that, because we don't know his age yet. That'll probably be something that will get asked in a Viva card, or asked in an SBS question, or something that will like just get outright stated at some point in time, possibly in the manga or something like that, for like how old Scopper really is. But like, he's at least younger than 80. That's at least confirmed here. But then again, Rayleigh and Roger would both, Rayleigh is younger than 80, and Roger, if he was still alive, would still only be 77. So there's that. Dory and Broggy are 160. We know that Jarl is like 405 or something like that. He's like 400 something. And like, even like Oimo and Kashi are like 53 and 50, or 153 and 156 for how old they are, respectively. So it's like, yeah, just like, that sucks. And like, and Rayleigh's Scopper's gonna bring this up in a second. He's like, marrying a giant doesn't make sense. Not if I'm the only one getting older. And again, there's like this. Again, this is something that has kind of been brought up here already, where it's just like, yeah, if you marry someone in that regard who's like, like a species that like either doesn't age or ages so much slower than, you do, than like a human does. And in this regard, it's giants, because they're the longest living races that we know of in the One Piece world. We don't know if there's any other ones that live that same amount of time, but they at least live, Jarl is, 400 something years old, but 300-ish or more, or so, depending on such. And by the time Ripley even gets anywhere near that age, Scopper's gonna be dust in the wind, and that's just exceedingly sad. Um, I mean, like, yeah, he clearly loves her and everything, and she loves him, and and he loves Colin and everything, but it's like that's just sad. I mean, like, yeah, Scopper could live to be as old as Kureha and be like 140 something, but that's unlikely. That's very unlikely unless Elbaf does something to like mess with his own aging. But again, you know, age may not be something that's factored into what's been going on with like the warning with Elbaf that some people have forgotten about, but like the warning of don't linger here too long. Aging may not be the problem there, because if that was the case and if his aging was slowed down, then that would make it easier for him to still be able to live alongside Ripley and Colin. And to be fair, Elbaf, even if you live there for like 20 years, because Scopper's basically been there for 20 years, except going to be out to go visit Crocus every now and then, or go visit some other people every now and then, he's going to, he's gonna still have places to go and explore on this freaking gigantic island, and monsters to fight or whatever. He may have even been partial in like trying to capture Loki so many years ago, when everything happened there. But Nami's like no kidding, to think someone like you exists. It was like, what do you mean someone like him, Nami? It was just like, the Mountain Eater name of this chapter is very double entendre, given Scopper and Ripley's relationship. That's very double entendre there. Also, when I heard Mountain Eater, my mind went to Cookie Monster, so that's why the cover or the thumbnail is just like this this slightly more disturbing version of Cookie Monster. From like the 1960s, because that's like one of the prototype Cookie Monsters they had. And I was looking at pictures and I'm like, that one there, that one will work for what I want. So there's that. Scopper jumps down from the armrest, from the arm of the throne, and he's like, love knows no bounds. He's like, mixed race people have existed throughout history. He's going to list off a couple of here, some of them that we know about, some of them that we don't know about. So, or one specifically that we don't know about. She's like, Buccaneers, we know about Buccaneers. Kuma, it says that the Buccaneers have giant's blood in them, so they're probably a result of like several generations of like humans and giants interbreeding and stuff like that. So there's that. I'm going to skip the one that we don't know about yet, but I'll get back to that one in a second. And then we have the long leg, long necks. So there's the long legs, and they're like the long limbs is kind of what they're referred to as, because there's like we know that Big Mom has like in her collection, she has the long-limbed, the long leg, long arm hybrid. That's like a hybrid of both races. And we know that she has that in her collection, which is disturbing. And then we also know that there's the other little human thing that is the humanoid mushroom thing, the Kinokobito. That is like the mushroom-shaped human with like 4 legs. And I think it's supposed to be like human size, but of course, because it's Big Mom, looking at it in the book, it looks much smaller. But Scopper's like, the long leg, long arm, long necks, the snake necks get thrown in there and everything. And then the Wotans are the half human, half giant, half fishman. We've really only seen 2 in the story. One of them was on Foxy's crew, and he's part of like the ball game that like Zoro and Sanji are a part of. And then the other one is just like, is from the 3D2Y movie that's like non-canon, part of, the Burndy World crew. He's just like another Wotan that we've seen. We haven't really seen in many others, although given how big Neptune and Shirahoshi are, I wouldn't be surprised if there is giant blood somewhere in the royal line of the fishmen and merfolk. And technically, because fishmen and merfolk, for how they breed, or for how they are able to interbreed, they're technically considered hybrids, I guess, but I'm not sure exactly. And then there is a Dosundaras, is what he also mentions. We don't know what that is. Dosundadas. Dosundaras. I tried double checking to see if they've been mentioned before. There was nothing that listed them. I don't think they're even listed on like the list of like the species that you can sell at the auction house, that we saw Sanji have during the Saba Odi arc. So I don't know what these things could be. We know that Big Mom has like lots of hybrid children because she has like hybrid children with almost every race, minus giants and Lunarians and Skypians, and the angel races. We know that she has hybrids with pretty much all the other races, that she considers, humanoid enough, including Tontatas, which is just like another variation of like, how the heck did that work? It was like, well, if that can happen with Big Mom and a Tontata, then surely Scopper can figure up something for him and Ripley to keep them happy. Although, take your pick. I don't know what to say about that. And he's like, such hybrids are rare and often struggle to thrive in their own on their own. But in every era, there have always been those who are more flexible, if you know what I mean. And I'm like, are you just throwing more double entendres at us? You're going to do another double entendre in a minute. It's like, that are more flexible. Sure, flexible. Are you mean like mentally flexible and like being accepting of other people? Or are you talking about actually being physically flexible? Because depending on stuff, probably yes. And like, he's jumped down in front of them, in front of Nami, Luffy, and Zoro, and is like, Scopper doesn't really seem to be like that much taller than them. I think we get like an eye-to-eye level with like him and Luffy in a minute or something. So there's like that. So I don't know what's going on there. And Zoro's like, you seem like an expert. Just who are you? And then he does the whole, I'm the missionary of love. And I'm like, oh God, man. Oh God. Oh Lord. So, missionary? Really? That was the word you went with? That was the word you went with? I mean, okay. Barring the certain connotations with missionary, lots of time there were like Christian missionaries and stuff like that would go to different places and try to spread Christianity, or like other, other religions have like missionaries. It's mostly Christians that would go to try and like spread Christianity in other various places of the world, and try to convert people and stuff like that. And they were missionaries. They're also mercenaries, but that's a very different thing. But then there's missionary, which, for those of you who may not be aware of it, it is a type of, how can I say this without getting demonetized? Not that I make any money off of these anyway. How can I say this without hurting the video? Certain types of positions when you are spending time with your partner would be a good way of putting it. That's what missionary is. It's very basic. And also we have now found the perpetual flirt of the Roger Pirates. It's like, with Scopper, because like Luffy even says, I bet Sanji ends up like him when he's older. And I'm like, you're probably not wrong, Luffy. I mean, okay, Roger landed Rouge. Rayleigh landed Shocky. Crocus has a whale. Although, I don't know, maybe Crocus has a girlfriend and we just don't know about her, because it wasn't prevalent way back at way back when we first met him at the Twin Peaks. I don't know. And then, like, Odin had Toki, so it's like, three of those ones have someone, and now Scopper has Ripley, so good for him. If Roger had lived and him and Rouge had been able to been happy together, seeing all of these couples, and like if Odin had lived and everything, seeing all these couples get together would be a very interesting, quadruple date or whatever you want to go on. And then the Crocus just shows up with Laboon. I was like, I brought my whale. I don't know. Crocus needs a girlfriend. Oda, give Crocus a girlfriend. I don't know who. Give him a girlfriend. I don't know. But I was like, yeah, Scopper may have been the perpetual flirt of the Roger Pirates, just flirting with like any of the women that they came across that like weren't Toki, I guess, or that was like, you know, just flirting with them, because we don't really have that much information about Scopper. We see him pretty much during the Odin flashback, and then, you know, we see him how he fights. He has axes and stuff like that, like what he just threw at Luffy and everything, but we don't really get that much of his personality. He goes along with what Roger and Rayleigh want to do, with what Roger wants to do, because him and Rayleigh are the captains. You know, Roger's the captain and Rayleigh is the vice captain and everything. And then Scopper was probably, you know, along with Odin, like the other two really strong heavy hitters on the crew. Not that the other ones on the crew weren't heavy hitters. Not that Crocus couldn't, you know, very easily defend himself. We see him be very capable of that even 20-something years later. He's still very capable of defending himself. But it'll be, you know, maybe when we go back and we finally get like the Roger flashback, we'll just see Scopper in the background just like going, just hitting on every single woman that they come across. Hitting on just like so many of the women that they come across, like Sanji does or whatever, just maybe in a less creepy way. Maybe he was more like of a gentleman about it, gentlemanly, maybe much more of a gentleman when it came down to it. I was like, whatever his tricks were, they worked on Ripley. I mean, like, they've been together for at least, you know, 21, 22 years or whatever. Don't know, maybe they met at some point in time before Scopper came and lived on the island, but still. So, Luffy just is like, anyway, old dude, we're looking for the key to free Loki. And then Road just goes, I must say, you shouldn't just blurt something like that out so casually. Why would he know anyway? And Luffy was like, oh, forget I said that. And Zoro's just like, it's too late. And I really hope that there's like Zoro just like either face palming or just like, oh god, Luffy moment like there, because I love those movies, those moments, those like just like, oh god, Luffy, why do you do this to us? And then Scopper just like starts, Loki, and he just starts laughing, and it's just like, interesting, troublemakers, are ya? It's like, I love it. And Nami's like, what a vindictive old coot. Just keep it to yourself, okay? It was just like, yeah, why don't you not try to cause trouble? I get that you might be bored, but that doesn't mean you want to release Loki onto the island. I don't know. And he's like, rumors were made to spread, Missy, is what he says. And it's just like, you know, secrets were meant to be spread, shared, stuff like that is what they're going at. And Nami's just like, I told you to quit it. And then Scopper just continues. And he's just like, you know what kind of man Loki is. What will you do if things go south? And Luffy's just like, oh, beat him to a pulp and lock him back up. It took Shanks and how many other members of the Giants to finally lock Loki up and trap him on the tree. I don't know exactly how well you're going to be able to do it on your own, Luffy, but sure, give it a shot. And Scopper's just like, the one who locked him up before was none other than red-haired Shanks. Until that point, no one was able to stop him. And Scopper is just continuing on, and he's just like, do you know the kind of power Loki wields? If there's even the slight chance of him running amok, have you thought of how many casualties will hang on? Like Luffy and Zoro are like walking away. And Luffy's just like, well, the key's not gonna find itself. If the old timer sounds like he's gonna go on and this old timer sounds like he's gonna go on for a while. Hey! And Zoro's just like, what a waste of time. And Nami's like, guys, we should take warnings like this more seriously. And Road looks down at Scopper, and he's just like, my sincerest apologies, sir, there. And then he just starts smiling. Scopper is just smiling like he's just so happy about this. And we get like this little flashback with like Roger, him, and Rayleigh. Roger, Scopper, and Rayleigh. And Roger's like, I'm sick of all your warnings. You scared or what? And they're like, that's not it. And they're like, and Roger's like, if you want to stop me, you'll have to use force. And Ryan Scopper is just like, we're just pointing out the risks, Roger, you dumbass. Why do I have a feeling if Jackass existed in the One Piece world, Roger would want to sign up for it? By the way, thing I found out partway through last year, my great aunt, one of my last great aunts on my mom's side, she passed away. I mean, I knew she passed away, but she had apparently a very big interest in Jackass in the series, and like she watched the episodes, and like every time they had a movie, she would go see it in the theater, and I'm just like, that is not something I associated with you at all, but okay, sure. Well, if I ever meet Johnny Knoxville or one of the other guys from Jackass, I can say, hey, my great aunt used to watch you. She lived to be 100. I don't think you will. Modern medicine is amazing, but still. And so we're getting this little flashback with like Roger and Scopper arguing, and then like Scopper is the one like trying to like doing the warnings, the way that Nami's trying to be like, maybe we should listen to them. Maybe we should take some of this, risk into account as opposed to just diving headlong into this. Again, Roger was definitely the Gryffindor of the Roger Pirates, one of the Gryffindors. Rayleigh, I don't know. Rayleigh may have been more towards like the Slytherin side with the ambitions and everything. Scopper may have been like the Hufflepuff or the Ravenclaw, since we don't know enough yet, and have been like, maybe don't dive into danger without having a bit more of a plan involved. But Scopper's like made up his mind, and he's like, hey Roto, move that throne a push. And it's like, what? And we cut away, and we cut down to the village where they're still having the big celebration and everything. And Usopp, Jinbei, Sanji, and Brook, I believe, are the ones that are still here because Nami, Luffy, and Zoro are, of course, up at the castle. And then Robin and Chopper are still at the library reading the Harley text. And Frankie is currently looking at the mural and being possibly flabbergasted by it, which is fair yet again. I would just stare at that mural and just go like, oh my god, oh, that's not good, type of a thing. Although if I ever did get reincarnated into the One Piece world, being a giant would be kind of interesting, because it's like, well, I'm already really big, so I'm a little more immune to some of the other things in this world that can try to kill me. And if I lived on Elbath, I can just learn how to train there and still go and read through the giant library and enjoy that. So there's that. Although, I don't know. So Usopp is talking to Oimo and Kashi. And I think it's Oimo that's talking. He's like, did you know there were 2 other monstrous fighters on the Pirate King's crew besides Roger? And Usopp's like, it wasn't just Rayleigh? And Oimo is just like, that's right. One time, when Captain Roger needed to recuperate, that man accompanied him to a hospital deep within the mountains. Unfortunately, enemy pirates surrounded the hospital trying to capture them. But that one man, armed with nothing but his 2 axes, fought off hundreds of them all by himself. And like we see like Gerds over here listening, and like the Straw Hats that are there like sitting on the table with all the food, as there's like giant sausages all over the place, and they're just like listening to this story, and there's like one man with 2 axes. Is like Usopp's just like was just like amazed by this, and Oimo continues, and he's like, and that's not even the craziest part. When the battle was over, not a single tree was left standing. He stripped the entire mountain bare. And Usopp was just like, that's next level deforestation. Yes, it is. Let's not send Scopper to the Amazon rainforest. We would like the Amazon rainforest to stick around for a long time, for a lot longer. And they're continuing. He's like, that's how he got the name Mountain Eater. Everyone knows that tale. And I think it's Jimmy that's just like, everybody knows that tale. And he's just like, he rivaled Vice Captain Silver's Rayleigh and was known as the left hand of the Pirate King. So when I was first reading the version of this that went up this morning, because I knew I wasn't going to have time to get this done and get to my job interview, this page was not here. And I was like, I had made a specific note to talk about, like, something got missed here because there's a page missing, I think. Thankfully, the page is up now, so that's good. So the reason he's called Yasan is because part of it's like Yaga or something like that is, I think, mountain in Japanese, because there's Mirko and My Hero Academia, and part of her name translates to Bunny of the Mountain is like what her name translates to, because it's like Yama something or other Usagi, and it's like Bunny of the Mountain is like what her last name translates to. So in this case, it's Mountain Eater. Part of that translates to, has like Ya in it, so that's why he's Ya-san instead of Scopper. So that's why he's being referred to as that. And like, so they're talking about, like, I mean, like, Scopper's been on this island for like over 20 years by the, whatever point in time, by the time he would have gotten, he may have just been dropped off on Elbeth after they dropped Roger off and then dropped off Odin. Scopper may have gotten dropped off here, or maybe after they got everybody else dropped off, him and Rayleigh finally parted ways, and Rayleigh has like the Sunny, or the Oro Jackson stashed somewhere near Sabaody or something, and then Scopper maybe traveled for a little bit, and then he eventually, maybe after Roger's execution or whatever, he ended up finally coming to Elbeth, and then eventually like fell in love with Ripley, and they fell in love with each other, and then they had Colin 20 years ago. And now it's it is kind of one of those things that I did a video over a year ago, more than a year ago, where I was talking about like the downfalls of being immortal, of having like eternal youth and longevity and stuff like that. And that is kind of like something that gets talked, that is like being referenced here, and the fact that like Ripley barely looks like she's that much older than like most of the Straw Hats, like barely looks like she's older than Robin. Colin is 20, he's older than Luffy, and yet he's the same age as Nami, he's older than Luffy, and yet he is very much still a child. And Scopper, who is at least younger than 80, is, at the oldest he's like 79 or whatever, and he's, he doesn't know how much longer he's going to be able to be around. And that is one of the problems with like being the partner of someone who is so much more has so much more longevity than you. It's like when I look at like different fantasy novels and stuff like that, where it's just like, oh yes, the female heroine or whatever falls in love with like this guy that's like 500 years old or whatever. And I saw something that was just like, it's like the reason that they fall for someone who's like 500 years older than them is because by then, like, hopefully that means that the guy has finally reached maturity, as opposed to like, your prefrontal cortex doesn't fully finish maturing until you're like your mid 20s or something like that, type of a thing. And I can assure you, as much as people like having a partner that they can goof around with, also having a partner that knows when it's time to be effing serious and responsible, that's awesome. That's awesome. Trust me. I can assure you of that. Particularly if you have kids and other things like that you have to be able to help with and all of that. So we cut back to the castle for the final double-page spread of this chapter. Not anywhere near as epic as like the Harley text in the mural at the end of last chapter, but still nice. And we come back to the castle, and they've moved the throne, and there's like a hidden chamber behind the throne, and they're like, oh, a hidden room, and it's like, is it the treasure chambers? Is Nami's question. And she's like, I love you, Yasan, is what she's saying. So it's just like Rhodes picked them up, and he's like carrying them down into the chamber. and it's probably like the staircase down. This reading about this made me think of the scene in the Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian movie, where like the four Pevensey children return to Cair Paravel, which is the castle that they lived in when they were living in Narnia as the kings and queens, and like behind their thrones there's like a chamber that like they push the button on the wall or whatever, the hidden switch on the wall, and they go down into the chamber, and that's where all their treasure was. So it's just like it's very similar to that. Lots of other shows, novels, movies, whatever, have like a very similar thing where it's just like, oh yeah, there's hidden chambers in the castle. It's fine. The Princess Diaries Royal Engagement has hidden chambers in their castle. Other castles have the same thing. They were real. Hidden chambers and castles. They're just there. And they get down the stairs, and they're like, Nami's like, treasure, treasure. It's like she's all happy. And Rhoda is saying, it was like, Sir, yeah, how do you know about this place? And Scopper's just like, I love to explore. They get down, and Nami's just like, a treasure. She's like, a treasure chest? Room? Why are the chests empty? All empty. And she's just like angry about this. And she's like, and Scopper's like, well, it used to be a treasure chamber. And it's just like, we just see treasure chests. Some of them are just like ripped apart, and they're just sitting all over. They're just discarded all over the place. All been rifled through, and everything of value has been taken. Most everything of value has been taken. And Nami's like yelling at Scopper. It's like, you liar. And he's like, don't blame me. This is an abandoned castle. It's only natural thieves worm their way in at some point. It's just like, it's been like, what, 12, 14 years or whatever since everything happened with, King Harald being killed. And then, Loki probably didn't want much to do with the castle if he was out causing problems out on the high seas before being, taken in by Shanks. It's like, yeah, 14 years, yeah, there's going to be people that have made their way in here and, stolen stuff or whatever. Of course there's been. Kids, giants, or whatever, teenage equivalents of giants being sent in on dares. It's like, I dare you to make your way down to the treasure chamber in the castle and steal something and bring it back here. Ha ha ha. And then like they do that or whatever, that's like a rite of passage or something for like a short time. It was like, I dare you to go to the castle with all the corpses and all the dead bodies and where the king was killed, and bring me a piece of treasure or something. Because kids are stupid. And did some do that type of thing, test of bravery or whatever, or someone was drunk, or there was just like some humans that somehow did manage to make their way onto the island, find their way to the castle and steal stuff. I don't know. And he's like, still, take a look at that. And they look over, and they're like, oh, it's the key. And he's just like, a prize not even the thieves were willing to take. So it's the key for Loki. And it's a key. It's a giant freaking key, because it's like bigger than him, but it's a key. And it's just kind of like sitting there on a pedestal. I expected something a bit not necessarily more elaborate, but longer, I guess would be a good way of putting it. I don't know. At least it's not as a big rusty key or whatever. Then again, if this key is made out of sea prism stone, because I don't remember I don't think the keys that they had to use when they were trying to save Robin on Ines Lobby, I don't think those keys themselves were made of sea prism stone. I just think it was, well, the cuffs were that were on Robin, yes, but I don't think the keys were sea prism stone. I think they were just metal or whatever. And Scopper continues, and he like takes off his his cover thing and his Casa hat, and he's like, in other words, even the bad guys don't want Loki freed. So you still want it? And we cut to the village again, and they're talking. And they're explaining, it's Oimo and Kashi again, and they're explaining to Usopp and the others that like, oh yeah, you heard me, he's been living in Elbath for over 20 years now. And they're like, no way, the living legend who stood shoulder to shoulder with Roger and Rayleigh, the Pirate King's left hand, Scopper Gabon. And we cut back, and it's Scopper, and he's like, picked up the key. I don't know if he's going to use the key as a weapon or not, but he's picked up the key. And he's like, if you want it, you'll have to get past me. And I'm like, oh God, sure. And there is like some italics around the or not italics. There's like a message next to like Scopper's name, and um, it's just I don't know. There's like a message next to it, but it doesn't really, the romanization or whatever doesn't work quite right in Japanese. And we have a break next week. I think we're on like a 2-week break actually, where we're gonna have to wait and see what happens with this fight. But we're gonna get a fight. Okay, given the fact that now we probably know why Shanks was on Elbath in the first place, beyond just like possibly checking in on Loki. If he knew Scopper was there, he probably went and talked to Scopper, and probably even talked to Scopper about Luffy at some point in time, because like Shanks has been in the New World and been an emperor for like 6 years and traveling around and everything. He's like stopped and talked to Crocus at some point, probably talked to Rayleigh at some point. We know he's at least talked to Rayleigh before, because he told Rayleigh about Luffy, and now he's probably told Scopper about Luffy. And he's Scopper. Well, Luffy is wearing Roger's hat. It's just is it currently on Luffy's back, or is it under his helmet? I think Roger's hat is just no, it's on Luffy's back. It's like sitting on his back on top of his like cape type thing that he's wearing, that Road put on him. So he's not, so like the straw hat isn't being hidden underneath his helmet like it may have been earlier, or was earlier, like in Dressrosa, where he wore it like underneath the hat and under the helmet and everything during the Coliseum fight. But yeah, we don't get like this big bombastic double page spread that's like a giant mural and text that talk about the Void Century and everything else like that. We get Luffy has to fight an old man. Luffy, you've been preparing for this for your whole life. Every time you've dealt with Garp, you've been preparing for this. Now, all you have to do is defeat this old guy. And you're good. You can get the key and then attempt to free Loki. And then possibly regret it, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So yeah, there's that. The thing that they mention about that I did want to point out is in regards to like this stuff with like Roger and Scopper and Rayleigh, is like maybe Scopper was one of the ones on the crew along, possibly, I don't know how much Rayleigh was into this, but like, trying to keep Roger in check at times to make him make like the slightly safer choice. Like how, I don't know, do we know who the navigator was on the Roger pirates yet? I don't remember. We know the navigator on certain crews, but I don't know if we know the navigator on the Roger pirates yet. Maybe it was Scopper. I don't know. That would be like a good comparison between like, Luffy, Rayleigh, and, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and like Roger, Rayleigh, Scopper, and everything in that regard. Because like Nami is always the one Nami and Usopp are the ones out of the crew, the far more level-headed ones out of the crew, and then Scopper may have been like that type of a thing on the Roger pirates as well. For going through that, so there's that I wanted to point out. The other thing is they mention Scopper having to carry Roger to a hospital in order to for him to like recover at some point in time, and it is very much this probable reference to, it's like we know that Roger got sick at some point in time. We don't know when Roger got sick exactly, I don't think, but he got sick at one point in time, and then eventually they found Crocus, and Crocus was the one who was able to keep Roger's illness at bay, whatever it was, type of cancer or whatever it was that he had, keep that at bay long enough for him to be able to find the poneglyphs and get to the One Piece and everything. And maybe this is one of the times when Roger got really sick, and then Scopper was the one who wasn't, because like Rayleigh maybe had to stay with the rest of the crew, and then Scopper was the one who's like, okay, I'll take him to the hospital, and he does get Roger to the hospital, and he has to fight his way through all of these enemies to get Roger to the hospital, so he's able to be treated and recover and everything. and in the process has to, you know, fight all the enemies, and just there's no trees left there by the end of it. And that's where he got like his nickname from. Although I don't know, that's a very interesting way of doing that story, but like, you know, well, possibly. But I believe that's all that I have for this. There wasn't any like big bombastic type things after last week with the with the Harley text and the mural and everything, and the everybody doing breakdowns of all of it. Not that they were bad, but very good breakdowns of lots of different of the text and the mural in and of itself. A slightly less bombastic chapter, even if it is a little bit shorter than normal. And then we're going into, I think, like a 2-week break or something like that. Because I think it's supposed to be back on like the 24th or something. So we'll see how that lands with everything. But that's what we have for this. I enjoyed this chapter, a little more on the levity side. And this still doesn't explain how this works for this relationship, but sure, fine, go ahead, have your fun. Be with the woman you love, or Scott, or I'm not going to stop you. She loves you, you're good. Have fun. But that's what we have for this. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.